SoD Phase 4 is finally here and we're going into Molten Core. I'm going to show you everything you need to know to hit the ground running as a Shadow Priest at level 60. The first things first, let's look at our actual stat priority. Now, Molten Core bosses are 3 levels above us, and the spell hit needed is going to be 16%. Yes, that sounds like an awful lot, but don't worry. We are going to get a hell of a lot of it from both talents and some juicy new runes. Next up is a spell or shadow damage. Of course, as a Shadow Priest, it's no surprise that a lot of our damage is coming from shadow damage, and therefore these can be both seen fairly equally. After that, I like to go for MP5, which is mana per 5 seconds. We are, of course, notorious for our mana issues, even with things like Shadow Fiend and that. I'm still having an issue here and there, so I do like a little bit of MP5 to help us go the extra mile. Then we have Intellect, which will give you 15 mana per 1 Intellect and a little bit of crit rating as well, making this a very good all-rounder stat. And lastly, it's going to be Spell Crit itself. With spell runes like Despair, where now our dots or damage over time spells can actually be crits as well, Spell Crit becomes massively influential to the rotation we are doing and how much DPS we can output. Moving now on to the talents and then soon the runes we are taking. I'm not going to go through all of these in a granular level of detail, as I have done that in the past phases. So if you are still leveling up, do have a look at my phase 1, 2 and 3 guides for Shadow Priest here on my channel to see what you should be doing at each kind of level bracket. We have got some really important ones here. We have Shadow Focus, reducing the target's chance to resist our spells by 10%. This does go into the hit rating we get. And things like Shadow Reach, where we're increasing the range of our spells as well, meaning we don't have to stand as close to the boss, giving us a bit more flexibility in raid environments. Shadow Weaving is also something that we want to keep up at all times. Your shadow spells have a 100% chance, so guaranteed, to cause the target to become actually vulnerable to shadow damage, and it does stack up to 5 times. This is going to increase shadow damage dealt to the target by 3% per stack, meaning it is going to go up to 15%. We then have Vampiric Embrace, afflicting our target with shadowy energy that causes all party members, not just ourselves, to be healed for 20% of all shadow damage that we deal for a minute. And on top of that, we're going to increase how much healing is done with the improved talent. Lastly, Darkness increasing damage of shadow spells, and of course Shadow Form. We're going to go into this at all times, assuming a Shadow Form, increasing our shadow damage by 15%, reducing physical damage done to us by 15%, so we're not as squishy. However, we cannot cast holy spells. You may think then, hang on a minute, we're putting talents into holy spells. Well, I'll explain why now. We have Unbreakable Will, which is going to reduce our chance to get things like stun and fears on us. 1 out of 5 into Silent Resolve, reducing the threat of our spells by 4%. And that isn't just holy, that is all our spells. Again, making sure we don't get any of that nasty threat. Improved Powered Fortitude, that's a nice buff for not just us, but the entire group and raid. 3 out of 3 into Improved Powered Shield, we're trying to get lower below. Meditation, allowing 15% of mana regen to continue while casting. Again, a fantastic increase to our mana we can get there. And 1 out of 1 into Inner Focus. It is on a 3-minute cooldown. When activated, it reduces the mana cost of your next spell by 100% and increases its critical effect chance by 25% if it can crit. And we can sort of use this as like a mini cooldown. Lastly, 1 point into Mental Agility. It's the last point we have. Reduces the mana cost of your instant cast spells by 2%. Therefore, again, just adding a little bit of mana regen in there. If you are really struggling with mana still, what you can do is come out of Unbreakable Will and put 5 out of 5 points into Wand Specialization, increasing the damage we do with wands. Wand or wanding, we're just flicking that wand at the target, is going to be our kind of last priority filler on the rotation if we are out of mana. So see how you feel, and obviously it depends on the boss fight as well that you are actually up against, whether you need Unbreakable Will or not, or if you are going to go into Wand Specialization. Moving now on to the runes. Starting off on the left with the head rune, we're going for Eye of the Void. Calling an Eye of the Void to fight for you for 30 seconds, the eye can cast a variety of curses on your target. This is similar to Homunshuli, where basically we can put a load of debuffs onto our target pretty passively. You can go for pain and suffering, but in my testing, generally Eye of the Void outweighs it in pure DPS. On the chest rune, it's Twisted Faith. This is because Void Plague is now going to be on our foot slot. I know it's not on here, but it is. Mind Flay and Mind Blast deal 50% increased damage to targets afflicted with your Shadow Word Pain, which of course they will be. Very self-explanatory on there. And then going onto the foot slot, you can get your extra dot or damage over time with Void Plague, or go for Dispersion if you would like some mana. Again, if you are struggling with mana, you can go for Dispersion, getting a bit of survivability and mana regen on there. But it really is up to you on those ones. Going back, though, to the wrist rune, it's going to be Despair. Periodic damage from your spells can have critical strikes, again, making crit all that much better. And on the hand rune, it's Shadow Word Death. Penance is still quite strong, but we can't use it now that we're using our Shadow form, meaning Shadow Word Death is going to be the default choice on here. If there is a ton of AoE that you do need to do, I would say you can swap this out to Mind Sear, however, an explosion of shadow magic damaging the enemy and other nearby enemies. But generally, for most single target fights, it's going to be Shadow Word Death outweighing the Mind Sear. On the waist rune, it's going to be Mind Spike. The other two runes are basically healing, and Mind Spike is a great filler spell that we could be using in our rotation. Homunshuli is one of my favourites on the leg rune, summoning your free little mini-me's to do, damage and debuff your target. The AI on them isn't great, so it's a bit of pros and cons on there, but I do still love it as a rune overall. We've spoken about the foot rune, cloak rune, vampiric touch. Again, this is going to do a dot or damage over time on your target and will actually cause to get some mana back for you and your party and raid members as well. And lastly, Holy and Shadow Specialization. This is again helping with hit chance. Chance to hit with shadow spells increased by 6%, and chance to hit with holy spells increased by 6%. Obviously, we aren't actually going to be using holy, but there really isn't any other option that we can take on that rune. So how does it all come together? Well, first of all, I'm going to move myself out the way so that we can actually see what we're looking at here. First things first, make sure you go into shadow form before the fight starts, of course. And if an enemy is generally going to live longer than a minute, we want to go for Vampiric Embrace on that target. If it's like a really, really quick mob, you don't need to waste your time with it. It's just not going to be worth it. Homunshuli to get those debuffs up on the boss straight away. And then straight after, go with Eye of the Void to get the curses up on the boss. Void Plague, of course, from your boot slot and maintain that on the boss as well. Same with Vampiric Touch and Shadow Word Pain. Basically, once you've got your curses and debuffs out, you want to maintain all of your dots or damage over time spells on the target or boss. Those main three being Void Plague, Vampiric Touch, and Shadow Word Pain. After that, we can put our Shadow Fiend up on our main target, use our Mind Blast on cooldown, use our Shadow Word Death on cooldown, and then use Mind Spike pretty much as our filler spell. And don't forget, if you do run out of mana, you can use Shoot with your wand. It's a pretty straightforward priority target system or spell system with the rotation we're using on Shadow Priest. Again, this is more single target. If you are using AoE, then use your Mind Sear and simply use your Shadow Word Pain as much as you can on as many targets as you can reasonably do. If you are having mana management issues, don't forget we have got our Dispersion, we have got our Shadow Fiend that we can use, and there's a few other passive things going on from talents, etc. So hopefully you won't be finding it too difficult. And that is pretty much it for how we're going to play Shadow Priest in Phase 4 of SoD. Hopefully that explained everything you need to know. Obviously, we haven't got the gear biz lists yet, so I can't add those in. But if you would like to, you can join my Patreon. I will be answering any questions one-on-one in the DMs over there, should you have any. If you have got any queries about the class, I can help you over there. You can also get access to a lot of other WoW resources like LVI profiles that I've made, specific behind-the-scenes videos and guides not available here on YouTube to make your journey even easier as well. And if you are looking for other classes, don't forget to check out the playlist here because I have done all of them for SoD Phase 4 for you.